What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. I know you didn't expect to see another classic Honda in the shop for a while. This is a bike I finished up a while ago that I need to do some fine tuning on the carbs. So I figured I'd bring you guys along and show you how to adjust the needles inside these carburetors without having to remove them from the bike. It's not a huge deal to remove them from this bike, but on a stock CB500 or 550 it can be a bit of a pain with the factory intake system. So I'm just going to show you how to do it without removing them. Here are all the tools I'm going to need. Some sort of pliers, you can do needle nose or a couple of different kinds. A JIS screwdriver, a small flathead and a larger flathead, a magnet, a 7mm and an 8mm socket, and of course some way to turn it, whether that be a ratchet or what I like to use is actually like a driver like this, and I'll show you why here in a second. So I'm going to show you this process twice, just because the two outside carburetors, number 1 and number 4, are super simple because they're sticking out past the bike. The number 2 and number 3 carburetors are just a fraction more difficult because this screw in here is kind of inset. So you got to kind of do a little bit of working around, but I'm going to start with the outside one since it's the simplest. We're just going to take our 2 JIS screws right out of the top. It's going to free up our top plate as well as the small gasket. That's going to expose our little, I'm going to call it an armature, which turns and actually pulls this slide up and down. That's how your actual throttle movement works. First thing we need to do is take out this little 7mm right here. So there is a small locking tab that we can use a flathead screwdriver. Just bend the little locking tab flat. Once that's flat, we take our 7mm socket, throw it right on there, unscrew. And I like to put a little fingernail or something underneath it just to keep everything together. There is a flat little locking tab as well as a split washer or a lock washer, and then the small 7mm bolt. Once our 7mm is out of the way, that's actually going to let us move this armature kind of independently of the rest of the carburetor. So we can just pull it up gently to get our slide to pull up. What I like to do is just throw a small screwdriver in there just to keep it stable, because we are going to be removing this 8mm right here on the top. This is actually supposed to have another little locking tab that has 2 kind of small pieces that fold up and keep this in place. For whatever reason, when somebody rebuilt this carburetor in the past, they didn't put that back on. This is the 8mm. And be very careful when you take this off, because there is this small kind of a barrel-shaped pin on the inside. I'll pull it out with my magnet so I can show you what it looks like. It's got a point on one end and kind of like a concave kind of dome on the other side. I'll show you how to make sure that that's installed properly when we put it back together, but don't lose that piece. Put that somewhere safe. Now what we can do is actually separate the armature from the slide itself. So you can grab your little screwdriver, and all you're going to do is gently kind of shift it over to the side just until it gets freed up, just like that. Now I can just pull straight up on our slide. Comes right out. I'll take you to the bench and show you how to move that needle. So this is our slide once it's off the bike. What we need to do now is remove 2 JIS screws down on the inside of these. You see them right there? So what I like to do is just take the notch, put it at my right side 3 o'clock position. Take my JIS screwdriver. If you try to use a Phillips on these, there's a decent chance you're going to strip them out. Okay, once they're free, I can twist this 90 degrees. So my slot's on my right hand side, 3 o'clock. I can see, and it's going to be a little clearer to see once it's removed, there is a little kind of nub sticking out at the 6 o'clock position. So if I turn this counterclockwise 90 degrees and then pull up, that little nub right there will come straight through our slot. And that's the little piece removed. Then push up on your needle. There it is. I'm going to give you guys a quick explanation of what these little notches do on here. So basically this needle goes down through the center of the carburetor, and as the throttle comes up, this taper and this clip position determines how much fuel your bike is getting from like a quarter to maybe half, a quarter to 3/4 throttle. That's the range we're adjusting here. Idle and lower speeds is going to be your smaller jet. Your full throttle is going to be your main jet. This is going to be kind of that mixture between the two in the middle. So I typically run my carburetors in that center clip. This particular bike doesn't have a muffler, and that means it's getting just a little bit more airflow. So I actually want to richen this mixture up just a little bit. To richen it, I'm going to move this clip down towards the pointy end of the needle. And what that's doing is making this needle sit just slightly higher in the carburetor, allowing just that little bit more fuel to come out. If I needed to lean the mixture out, I would actually drop it or move the clip towards the top of the needle right here. So again, you have 5 total positions. I'm gonna go ahead and move this one all the way to the bottom, and we can see what kind of difference that's gonna make. To actually move it, you can just kind of press on the side, remove the little C-clip. Just be careful it doesn't spring out and shoot across your workbench. And we can move down to the bottom position here. It's a little bit fiddly. Get everything lined up. And just press until it clips in, just like that. Now we're on the very bottom, or the most rich position. To reinstall, it's going to be just the reverse. So I'm going to take my slide, put my notch at 3 o'clock. I can drop my needle and clip straight through the center. Then I'm going to take this piece with my little nub on the side, drop it in, turn it back to 3 o'clock. And then we're ready to put in our 2 screws. It's easier if your JIS screwdriver is magnetized. If it's not, you can literally just rub a magnet on it, and that'll give it just enough for you to feed the screw in here. I like to just get it started a couple of threads, move on to the next one. You might have to kind of twist it a little bit to get everything lined up. Once that's going, you're ready to go ahead and just tighten them all the way down. There is this little piece that fell out in the center. There is no orientation for this. It's basically just domed on both sides, so you're going to want to make sure that that drops back into the center. And this is ready to go back on the bike. For reinstallation, this slide is going to go right back in. There's a little nub on the side of the inside body of the carburetor that corresponds with this groove on the side of the slide. So there's only one way that it's going to be able to go in. So what we want to do is get it close to going in, bring our little armature over, and get it as lined up as we can. And this is spring loaded a little bit. So if I kind of hold the slide in place with my right finger, pull up on this left side, that should give me just enough clearance to install the armature there. If you're having trouble, you can also just put a little flathead screwdriver straight in there to kind of compress that spring, pop in the armature, and it's good to go. Now we're ready to put our little 8mm cap back on. And remember that little piece that's in here, we want the domed piece to go down. It's basically kind of going on either side of the little ball. So you want that to go down. Typically this would have that locking tab on there. Drive that down tight. Then we can go ahead and send the slide down the carburetor a little bit so that we can line up our hole for our 7mm. Put that on. The flat side of our locking tab goes towards the slide. Crank down our 7mm. These do not need to be crazy tight. Take our flathead screwdriver, bend the little locking tab up, just like that. Replace our gasket, our top cap, and our 2 JIS screws. So that's it for number 4 carburetor. We're gonna move on to number 3, which is just a fraction of more difficult because of this inside screw is running directly into the frame. So this is where I grab my pliers and just very gingerly grab the top of that screw and start to undo it. And what we're looking to do here is just get enough turns out of it so that it's nice and loose. So we can sneak in there with our JIS screwdriver at an angle and bring it out the rest of the way. Just like that. I'll reach in here and finish it off with my hands just so I don't drop this screw. This one's nice and easy to get to, so it's no big deal. And everything in here is just going to be the exact repeat of what I just did. You shouldn't really have to do anything differently. You're just working in a slightly more confined area since it's kind of snuck under the frame rail, but you should be able to get to everything the same. We're about, I don't know, 40 miles into the test ride or so, and everything's going great. This is exactly where I used to have the issue. Just kind of cruising, and then when you like went to go just kind of, say you wanted to pass somebody or just accelerate out of a turn, it would sputter. Now, you can see it's just buttery smooth. Which is something I've been looking for on this bike for a while, so I'm very, very pleased with where it's at. But on that note, I'm going to cut this one off here. I appreciate you guys watching as always. We have another video coming on the Triumph once that part comes in, and then we're on to the R100 GS Paris Dakar. So I'll see you guys soon.